Iron Gwazi has been one of the biggest mysteries that the coaster industry has had in recent history. The park has taken a questionable route to say the least when regarding the opening of Iron Gwazi. The park hasn't given an official update since the release of the point of view video of the coaster in November, which has kind of left this ride in the dark. This coaster has been expected to be the crown jewel of Busch Gardens Tampa, and why shouldn't it be? It'll be one of the few hyper-hybrid coasters we've ever seen from RMC when it opens, and the ones that have already opened have been phenomenal. This has made the situation that much more bizarre, because this is one of the biggest and most prominent rides in the park, and it's just been sitting there with no word from the park on it. It's really hard for me to think of another situation where a park has had a coaster of this magnitude just sitting dormant with minimal action on the site. This has led me and many others to ask the question, is there something bigger going on with Iron Gwazi? To that question, I say let's take a closer look at what is really going on with Iron Gwazi and why is the park mum about it. Now before we get into that, make sure to do me a huge favor by hitting that like button. This will help us out greatly in our fight against the YouTube algorithm, and I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I post new amusement park content weekly, and I have so many cool things planned for this upcoming season, so make sure to subscribe. Also, if you guys like this kind of speculation video, make sure to let me know down in the comments below, as I'll gladly cover this story more as it progresses. Now with all that being said, let's quickly review a bit of the backstory on this coaster. In June of 1999, Gwazi opened to the public as a dueling GCI wooden coaster. The coaster opened to good reviews, but eventually the status of this ride began to decline and maintenance costs rose, leading to the closure of the coaster in 2015. The coaster sat quietly as the park tried to figure out what they were going to do with this beast of a wooden coaster. In late 2018, it became apparent that Gwazi's structure was to be reused for a new attraction, as the park was removing the track delicately from the coaster, which led many to believe that the coaster was receiving the RMC Iron Horse treatment. In early 2019, Busch Gardens Tampa confirmed that a record-breaking hybrid coaster would be opening at the park in 2020. Later that year, they announced that the name of this coaster would be Iron Gwazi, and in March of 2020, track work for the coaster had been completed and the coaster began to test. However, this was essentially the last notable progress on the coaster. Busch Gardens Tampa was forced to close due to the COVID-19 pandemic for a few months. It was also then revealed that Busch Gardens Tampa owed RMC $3.5 million of the $9 million cost for Iron Gwazi. We then heard in a quarterly earnings call for SeaWorld that all new for 2020 attractions that had not opened yet would be delayed until 2021. The park then updated the status on the website of the attraction to say opening spring 2021 later in the year. The park did release a point of view video of the coaster in November, but we are now sitting 7 months later with only one real change. The status of the coaster has been changed to anticipated opening 2021 along with the other SeaWorld coasters. We have seen the coaster testing again recently, but the park has said nothing on the topic. Over time, pressure has been mounting on the park to open the ride, as the coaster has been sitting there for over a year now, and many people are starting to question what is actually going on. The initial cause for the delay was likely for two reasons: the liens filed against SeaWorld and the capacity restrictions being placed on the park. However, those two issues have presumably been resolved. We haven't gotten official word about the liens, but for the purposes of this video, we are going to be assuming that they've paid them off because it has been over a year since they were filed. The coaster has also started to lose a lot of the hype that it had initially. Florida has been booming with new coasters, including one of the best coasters in the state opening up just down the road with a Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure. This coaster pretty much stole all of the spotlight from the other coasters being built in the state ever since the pandemic, because that project was just continued as planned, compared to most of the other coasters in the state having construction and all progress being halted. As rave reviews of that ride come in, Iron Gwazi just sits, collecting cobwebs. The coaster has become more of a symbol of frustration than excitement at this point, as other coasters like Jersey Devil Coaster, Pantheon, and even Icebreaker inch ever closer to opening. The The coaster has become a subject for new jokes every day, it feels like. At this point, it's even apparent to casual park goers how bad the situation looks. It's gotten to the point where people are legitimately questioning if they'll ever get the chance to ride it. It feels like Busch Gardens is shooting themselves in the foot more than anything. 2021 has been one of the best years for attendance in recent history for amusement parks, and many parks are struggling to meet the demand. In fact, many parks are low on employees, which some may point to as a possible cause, but I just can't see that being the case. If I ran the park, I'd do whatever I needed to do to move people around to be able to get the ride open. And it is nothing short of stupid if this is the case and they're using this as their excuse. Also, tracking back to the attendance increase this year, that should automatically rule out COVID for being a factor at this point. There aren't really many restrictions relating to COVID at this point, especially with the vaccine being so widespread now. And plus, Florida is one of the least restrictive states. However, I think a much better argument could possibly be made that SeaWorld doesn't think they can handle anything more than they're already getting in terms of attendance, or in other words, there would be no benefit to opening Iron Gwazi. So they are waiting for demand to decrease before opening this ride. This would make sense with the national employee shortages right now, so it might be foolish to try to add to the problem. However, I think Busch Gardens Tampa is putting themselves in a lose-lose situation that there's really no getting out of at this point, if this is the actual reason. If there was a technical issue or something along the lines of that with the coaster, the park could just be transparent about it and it would preserve some of the hype for this coaster. However, not being transparent about it is killing some of the hype. Tracking back to the lose-lose situation I mentioned earlier, the way I see it is that if they open the ride now, they can't really experience much growth. But if they open it when the crowds die down, which may not even really ever happen for all we know, the hype will have already died off and the opening of the coaster will feel like more of a relief than a celebration. The other thing I could see being the case is that there's a structural issue with the coaster. Gwazi was said to have structural issues due to the Florida heat that made keeping it up a pain, but I highly doubt this. When Iron Gwazi was designed, the designers likely had this in mind and replaced any problematic areas with new wood or steel, so this realistically shouldn't be a problem. And even if that was the case, why isn't the park being more transparent about it? And we just saw them testing it again recently, so that doesn't make any sense at all. So a potential technical or structural issue does not seem like it is the case from the knowledge that we have. We also have to look at the rest of the chain. Most of the other new coasters in the chain are getting to similar points in construction as Iron Gwazi and are sort of going through the same thing. Emperor tested seemingly before Iron Gwazi did, and we haven't heard much about it since, although California does have tight COVID restrictions as of now, so that could potentially be a reasonable explanation. Pantheon is kind of going through the same thing. Pantheon tested, but then it all just kind of stopped. Icebreaker had employee previews a little while back, but nothing has happened since. However, Icebreaker is a coaster on the smaller side. That coaster doesn't really compare to the significance of Iron Gwazi and Pantheon for their respective parks, so I think the way they handle those two coasters is the most crucial point of information. I don't really think there's a major issue with either one of those coasters, so I think that they both had the same reason for not being open yet. SeaWorld does not know what to do. There was so much hype around all of these coasters initially, and SeaWorld wanted to make sure they nailed both of the openings for these rides. However, they kind of put themselves in a tough spot. I think Pantheon will get off a little better because that coaster was not as far along in the construction process when COVID hit, but Iron Gwazi was pretty much finished, so there's really no getting out of this one. And it's front and center in the park and everybody knows about it, so it's really just a bit of an embarrassment for the park at this point. This reasoning would also explain why SeaWorld hasn't been transparent about what has been happening with their new roller coasters. It's not that they are hiding something from us, they just truly don't know. Think about it. SeaWorld knows the importance of these attractions to their parks, and they know how many people have been watching with wide eyes. If they knew something, they would love to bring more attention to these rides if they actually felt there was a plan in place. But for now, SeaWorld is pretty much playing this one by ear. Given what we know about the situation, I can't see much of any other reason being the case, but in the meantime, we'll have to just be happy about what the parks are offering currently. It's really unfortunate what has been happening with these coasters, and I'm sure SeaWorld did not want this to happen, but here we are. Now I want to know what you think. Do you think my theory makes any sense? Do you think it doesn't make any sense? Make sure to respectfully tell me all of your thoughts down in the comments below. Also, if you have any information that I didn't talk about in this video, please share it with everyone in the comments, as we all greatly appreciate it. I'm definitely hoping for the best in the situation. I don't really know how it will all go down, but it looks like we'll have to wait this out for now. Now, with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe if you already haven't. But with all that out of the way, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.